Welcome to a video from thedigitalized.com. This is a multi-poly tutorial and I'm going to be looking at LFOs, and this really applies to any synth. What are LFOs and what can you do with them? On the multi-poly, we've got this selection of LFOs, but first, what are LFOs? Low frequency oscillators. So these are oscillators that aren't the ones that you hear, so your sine waves, your sawtooth waves that you can normally hear through your synth, and you go through a filter and so on. These are low frequency oscillators that you can't hear, but you can use to control the synth. And I'll show you some examples of that. Here on the multi-poly, we've got two LFOs for the filter, one for the amp, one for the pitch, and one for pulse width modulation. But actually, on the multi-poly, you're not fixed to using them for those destinations. You can use them for anything. You just have to create the mod routine, and it's really simple to do. So you can think of it like a semi-modular synth where these are all hooked up. The filter's hooked up to the the filter LFO is hooked up to the filter A, filter B to filter B, and so on. But you can, as well as that, you can use it for other things. So let's have a look at some of the things we can do with the filter, and then we'll have a look at how we can apply it. So an obvious one is you could apply some tuning to it. So let's take the pitch LFO there, and if we look at the global level, the pitch LFO, if I turn that value up here, you can hear that LFO. And that's the pitch LFO, which is automatically connected here to the tuning. There you can see pitch LFO, and as you increase that intensity, you can get some really interesting effects. And you've got negative, so you imagine you could use that with, say, a sync, and you can also suddenly you can get some really nice sync type sounds on it. We'll have a look at that in a bit. So that's why you can hear the output of that. Let's have a look what we can do. So we've got the frequency. We can increase that. That's in the frequency in hertz, but we could also up to 32 hertz. There we can go. We can tempo sync it, so it's locked with the clock, and you can sync it with the sequencer clock coming in, or the internal clock. So that's very handy. That I use that quite often. Let's turn it off for a sec. But there we go. I've got some other things we can do with it as well. We can delay that LFO coming in. Let's put it as 1.2 seconds. So that's really nice for a sort of maybe some sort of flute-like lead. Yeah, that flute sound. It sounds a bit digital with control, or a bit. It doesn't sound great with just a simple sawtooth, but you know what I mean. We've also got a fade, which is very similar but slightly different. Let's put it to 1.2 again. So this time it comes in straight away, but it fades in intensity. So it starts off at 0 intensity and gets up to the 1.48 that we've got there. So sometimes I quite like to delay it slightly and then fade it in so it sounds more natural. So if I was to switch to a nice square wave, you get the idea. Got some other values on here as well. We've got an offset. So as you see, as we change the offset, you can see where it's going to go. So the pitch is only going to go down to its maximum lowest on this cycle, but it's always going to be higher. So you can't really hear it. I suppose you can hear it. So what effect you could use with that? Well, you could have a detuned oscillator, just slightly out of tune, but then still got the LFO on it, and that's your starting point. So you could use it for all sorts of things. You could use it for offset if you were using one of these LFOs to control, say, the wavetable position. So let's have a look. I'm going to turn that off now. Let's turn that back to 0. Let's change to a digital wavetable, and we'll go with one of the vocal ones. I always like those. There we go. Now we can morph this one. There's a morph LFO. By default, it's using this LFO there. So there you can hear that morphing through. If we were to change this offset, it would kind of change the center position. So you can see it's only going through that half there. The other thing we can change is the phase. And you won't hear much in this example, but our phase LFOs can sound really interesting when we start to get some filtering effects. So maybe we'll look at that later. And you can also randomize the phase to make that sound even more analog. And we can also alter the curve, response curve of it as well, which is nice. We can also choose different waveforms. Let's just put that back a moment. Let's change that to sawdown. So you can hear that sort of effect. Now we've got saw up, square, and we've got some sine, guitar one, which is like and we've got random ones as well. And we've got different forms of random as well. So we've got like stepped random, we've got maximum, minimum random, and we've got nice continuum. Now, one other function, I'm just going to take that down. Let's just go back to a sawtooth. That sawtooth there. Let's look at filter, do some stuff with the filter now. So there's our filter. Now, if we've got maybe an arpeggiator, let's put the arpeggiator on. Now maybe if we turn the filter LFO. Now at the moment it's not, you're not hearing the filter going up and down. It's because every time the key is pressed, it's restarting the cycle of the filter LFO. So if we turn to sync note and free running, it will start running and the LFO will continue no matter whether you press the key or not. So that gives you that effect. You can hear it fading in and out there. If I just turn the bass cut off at a bit of, now I've had a bit of resonance. You can start to get that effect, especially if you tempo sync that. You can have it going over a bar. Well, there's some other stuff we could do. Let's go to our random. So I've just put it on random there and tempo synced it. You can see the effect you can get. Oh, I do like this. You could do it like this. So that's where the free running becomes really handy. So there's the free running. I think is a really nice feature, and it gives you sort of nice stuff to do with, especially with you've got sequences running and it can carry on running in the background. So you could use a mod processor to control the sequence. All these parameters on here can be modified by other parameters. So one other trick I want to show you. Let's slow that frequency of the filter right down. But we're not using filter B at the moment. So what I can say is the frequency of filter A is modified by filter B's output. So let's set an intensity on that. So let's have that quite slow. Right, bring that down. And what I'm going to do that is have that on free running as well. So now the output of this LFO, which is quite low, is going to speed up and slow down the LFO filter A LFO. I might need to increase that a little bit so you can hear it. Slow it down a little bit. You can hear that LFO speeding up and slowing down. So it's always a really interesting effect when you get something like that. So if we get an arpeggiator. So you can get some interesting effects like that. So you can, like I said, you can modify any of these parameters with anything else. You could make the frequency dependent on which key you're pressing, velocity, anything you can do through that. So like I said, you've got multiple LFOs to control multiple things. Some are wired in already, but you don't have to use them. You can use anything else. So we haven't used the amp, we haven't used in this example, so we could use it for that detune. So although we've got one already set up on there, but let's say we wanted to introduce a bit of noise, we could adjust that noise level with, say, the amp LFO. It's a really powerful feature of the multipoly, having all these LFOs to play with, and this is on a single layer as well, so you've got all this multiplied by 4. So get experimental with LFOs. They can bring a lot of texture and analog feel into your programs, by especially if you start to get them all out of time and everything, just to make things shift and never quite sound static. So I hope that is some use to you. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to feature any other areas of the multipoly, the mod wave, or the wave state, and I'll talk about it on a future video. Thanks for watching.